we are here this week to talk about the grand subject of astrology, but in direct connection with how knowing astrology and learning more and more and more about astrology, how that has changed yours, well, and mine actually, tarot readings. I mean,
Right.
did you know tarot before you knew any astrology?
No, I think it was the other way around actually. But
Ah,
I mean, I knew astrology at a more superficial level, kind of like commercial pop astrology, where they think that or they make you think that your astrological profile is basically dependent on what your sun sign is, which is a really shallow approach.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
so okay, because I'm like the opposite. I knew absolutely nothing about astrology. I mean, I just knew that I was Aquarius because of my date of birth, and that was just a word. That
Hmm.
didn't mean anything to me, and I didn't even
Right.
think about it. So I knew quite a lot about tarot before
Hmm.
I even introduced the idea of astrology into it. But so we're coming at this from sort of opposite angles, but we do both mix the two. So would you say it was because of your astrology or interest in astrology that you decided to get into the tarot? Did the astrology encourage that at all?
Not really, no. My path to tarot was independent. At first, it just seemed to be a pure coincidence. I think it started when I found this deck in a bookstore randomly, and it just spoke to me because, like, I love synchronicities, right? And
Yeah,
I just quickly discovered that when I shuffle the cards to get an answer to a question that meant a lot to me, I'd get something meaningful back.
right.
So that's how the tarot started appealing to me. And then at a later stage, when I started realizing that there were, I mean, quite a few tarot decks that integrated astrology into
Yeah,
their structure, and especially I'm thinking here of Aleister Crowley's Thoth deck,
yes.
then then I got super interested to discover what could be done with the combination of the two.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of those points of no return because once you actually really kind of start to sort of really feel and see the connection between the two, even though they are two different things,
Mhm.
um, you it's very hard not to kind of relate to them to each other. It's very hard
Right.
to kind of absolutely totally separate it, I think.
Right. I
I
mean,
mean, when I
especially
do,
because the
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, I was just going to say, when I do really short little readings, there isn't
Uh-huh.
time to sort of do astrology. And I just think, oh, if only there was
Right.
time to kind of look up this person's birth chart. Oh my God, right, but yeah, sorry, but what were you going to
Yeah, yeah,
say?
yeah. No, I was gonna say, like, especially because both systems, tarot and astrology, they to a very significant extent, they're mm, they they're structured based on certain archetypes. Like you can think of a zodiac sign as a particular archetype. You can think of traditional and modern planets as kind of doing archetypal roles or having archetypal personalities, right? And you can even think of the aspects between planets in different signs, right? As also kind of expressing archetypal scenarios, right? And the same I think applies to the tarot, not only in the case of the major arcana, the 22 major cards, but even in the case of the minors, right? Like you have the archetypal personalities of the court cards, for
Oh,
example.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think combining the two really, mm, like really helps to deepen your your personal experience of astrology, whether you're reading about your own natal chart or whether you're reading about particular transits, astrological transits, independent of your natal chart, or whether you're integrating the two, like asking, for example, how is this particular planetary transit affecting this particular part of my own natal chart, you know? Um, yeah, and it can also, add something to your understanding of the archetypal nature of a certain tarot card, for example,
Mm.
like the link between, like this, the link that the golden members of the Golden Dawn, for example, made between the Tower and the planet Mars.
Okay, yes.
Like, so it really makes you
That
feel
makes
that,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, it makes you feel like the tarot is a kind of a force of nature, and it doesn't really care about um, sympathizing with people on an individual level, right? Like a planet is there to kind of maybe channel the range of possibilities um, that are um, that are kind of that fit its own personality and its own archetypal character, right? Whether these energies affect a person or a collective, right? Um, so there's that element of like disaster, like Martian violence, um, kind of hitting people and then undoing the structures that they've built,
Yeah.
and the
That's
same
exactly,
applies if you look at
that's
the
exactly
the world
the
card.
tower card.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
world card, for example, which is also has been associated with Saturn. If you read it as a Saturnine card, that really adds a lot to your understanding of it, like symbolically as an esoteric symbol, right? Because Saturn is the planet of, it gives structure to potential being born, and it's believed to actually even, it's often associated with the body in astrology, so it's believed to give form to the soul when it incarnates, So in addition to the world meaning like possibilities realized in their fullest, most tangible potential, you know, you can think of the world card once you link it to Saturn, you can think of it in terms of the experience of embodiment, right? And how that relates to one's experience of oneself as a spiritual being, and also because Saturn rules time and the karma that people build over time, you can
Yeah.
think of the world card as also touching on the subject of karma, right? And kind of asking you to reflect on um, all the ways in which you've contributed, let's say, um, to others, right? And the ways in which you've done wrong by others, done wrong to others, right? So yeah, so it can be, once you intertwine these two systems, astrology and the tarot, you come up with something significantly different and powerful.
I still think though, I mean, yeah, I just think there is just access to so much more by mixing the two. But I
Right.
still feel the thing I rely on the most is my intuition, which is more towards the tarot thing. That's where I've come from, because I knew the tarot first. But I rely on my intuition to sort of tell me when to take notice of the astrology and in what way to take notice of it. Because sometimes I feel it's saying to me, like, for example, look at where Mars is in, I'm using that as an example, or look at where Saturn is in that person's birth chart. And then you will understand what this tarot card is saying. So sometimes it's telling me to kind of like bring in the chart, or sometimes it's telling me to say, look at the current transits and see how what's going on in the sky right now is affecting their Mars or their Saturn. So everything is sort of coming into play for me.
Yeah.
My intuition is kind of guiding when to use the astrology and in what way to use the astrology. And I think tarot fills in a lot of the gaps as well. Tarot, astrology sort of raises a lot of situations and questions, and tarot will answer them you know, I think the blend between the two,
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I think like there are many ways in which you can blend the two. So there's a very kind of direct, simple way of assigning particular cards to particular signs or planets, right, or decans. Um, and then there are like things like astrological spreads,
Yeah,
where each card's position could correspond to a particular one particular house among the 12 houses,
yeah,
right, of human experience, right? Yeah, so you can design a spread in that way, and then whatever card turns up in that position then would cover that astrological topic, right? Or would be speaking to it, you know?
yeah,
Um, yeah, so basically it's, and you can just ask an astrological question. You know, you can ask an astrological question, be like, I don't know, how is the transit of Mercury through my personal, let's say, ninth house, right?
yeah.
Um, what is it doing now? Or you could ask us a question similar if it's say, let's say Venus when it's conjunct your own natal
Wait a minute.
Venus, like,
Put this into language that a person that doesn't understand astrology is going to know what you're talking about. So when you're
okay,
saying that Mercury, for example, right now, the Mercury in the sky is affecting your personal ninth house.
right?
Is that what you said? You as an
Yeah,
example. Just
yeah,
explain what that combination of things means, and then say what tarot question you would then ask. Put that in
right, okay,
simple English.
right, okay. So for example, if Mercury in the sky is kind of coming close to the position that it occupied at the time you were born, right? At the hour and minute you were born.
Yeah,
And that position happens to be, let's say, yeah, in the ninth house. And that ninth house corresponds to the sign of Virgo, for example. Um, and the ninth house covers topics like
yeah,
religion, philosophy, higher education,
yeah,
teaching, travel, across long distances, etc.
yeah,
Um, so you could ask, like, for example, what possibilities is the Mercury in the sky giving me now? Right? And how I can make use of these
yeah.
possibilities, what challenges maybe is it kind of flagging up?
If you knew you were about to take a long distance travel trip, what
Yeah,
was not very common at the moment, but let's just say that that was coming up, and you knew
yeah,
that Mercury was there, then
yeah,
you could make your question to the tarot related to that trip and related to kind of like the impact of Mercury, who is kind of like in your particular case, because it's not going to be affecting everybody's travel. This is
uh-huh,
the placement for you because of your natal chart, which we would have access to that information because we understand the astrology chart. So you could
right.
you're saying is you could target your tarot reading
Mm-hmm.
to not just to say, oh, what's going to happen with Khalid's trip to, you know, across America or whatever, but you could say, how is the energy of Mercury being there for the next
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks or however long going to affect
Right.
it, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's no end of questions that you could ask
Mm-hmm.
in a tarot reading that directly relate to what's going on in the sky and how it's affecting somebody's personal chart. I mean, it's extraordinary what we have
It
access
really
to.
is. It really is. And you
Yeah,
can also use it to try to figure out how certain like aspects or geometrical relationships between planets in the sky currently, right?
yeah,
How they are affecting your own birth chart. So your own potential, you know, scenarios, right? Um, so let's say you have, hmm, so let's say you have Saturn in the first house and Uranus in the uh, fourth house, right?
your birth chart.
Um, yeah, let's assume that, right?
Yeah,
And now we know that Saturn in the sky is passing through Aquarius,
yes,
right? So basically, I mean, So the scenario I'm drawing is that if assuming your own first house is the sign of Aquarius, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
know, and we're according to the whole sign house system, right? Um, so if your first house is Aquarius and your fourth house is Taurus, then you could say that Saturn is transiting or passing through your first house, and Uranus is transiting or passing through your fourth house. And so there's a harsh aspect between them called the square, right?
right.
Where it's like a distance of 90 degrees of longitude, you know, roughly five, add or take away 5 degrees, right? So you might want to ask what sorts of tensions that's creating and what sorts of possibilities is that maybe opening up, you know? And you might find that the tensions and possibilities linked together first house topics such as the self, the body, self-image, body image, persona, right? With fourth house topics such as the home, the family,
Yeah,
land, property, etc. Right? So you can really personalize the transits, right? The planetary transits through the signs or houses, right, in your birth chart, um, by through the signs in the sky by tying them to the sign and house positions that are specific to your birth chart. Yeah.
so if you knew
Yeah.
you know that you were going to be doing a reading for someone and they'd booked you for, like, let's say at least an hour, which allows time for all of
Hmm.
this, would you, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Would you first of all find out what they wanted their reading to be about and then look for the specific things astrologically, or would you see what was going on for them astrologically and then decide what would be the best tarot reading for them? Or does that
I
vary?
would first look at their chart
Yeah,
and see, first of all, there's something called a profection year. So that's like
yes,
an ancient, let's say an ancient timing method, which looks at it figures out which house of topics is being emphasized during your current birth year. Okay, so I'd look at that house and see which planets are in it and which planet rules it. Right, and look at the relevant aspects within the chart, and then also look at the relevant aspects being made between some of the transiting planets and the planets in that perfected house or the planet ruling that perfected house, right? So that's something that I would do, and just flag up a certain list of or just write down a certain list of possible questions that I might want to pose, right? And then I'd have the client tell me um, what issue they're interested in learning in, right?
yeah,
But probably before I do that, I tell them this is what's going on based on the relationship between the transiting planets and your birth chart. Um, so, would you like to ask a question relevant to these potential scenarios, right?
mhm,
And see where they go. You
yeah.
know? Yeah.
Do,
Hmm.
do you believe that you are superior? I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but it's the best word I can think of, to a tarot reader that doesn't know a thing about astrology. Do you believe
Mm.
that you have access to sort of more detail and you can read your readings with more confidence because you've got the two things synchronizing, the tarot and the astrology? Do you feel stronger about your readings because of the two?
Well, I wouldn't say superior, but I would say at an advantage because astrology, I think, is very real. It has a real impact on our lives. Um,
Yeah,
and combining let's say, the predictive possibilities of astrology with the predictive possibilities of the tarot really is a special tool.
yeah,
Um, Now, that doesn't mean that I need to add astrology to every reading. You know, I
yeah,
think it would be I mean, it's not even feasible. It's not practical or feasible, especially if a client comes asking for a short reading.
Yeah,
You just
no, you can't.
can't do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, for me, ideally, it would be at least a 90-minute session. You know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives you an advantage in terms of like uh, yeah, like how you can understand uh, like the fuller spectrum of possibilities and challenges
Mm,
like that are facing that particular client,
yeah.
right? Um, and it can give you the tool that you absolutely need to do
Yeah.
a more specialized type of tarot reading, which is an astro tarot reading. Yeah.
I've got to be honest. I definitely feel more confident about
Hmm.
my messages when I do mix the two. I just feel a great degree of certainty about what I'm saying when I'm getting something from, say, astrology that is backed up by what I'm getting in the tarot and vice versa. And I
Hmm.
don't think, I don't want to speak too soon because it could happen, but I don't think I've ever read anything in the tarot and then the astrology says something entirely different, and the
Hmm.
two just contradict. They always seem to kind of cement it.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
if
mean,
that's what you get as well.
yeah. I mean, one of the most rewarding readings that I did, was, um, yeah, for a client who was interested in knowing specifically, um, which topics would be highlighted during her current birth year,
Okay.
right? And how she could best make use of the possibilities concerned with with that set of topics. Um, so when I did, I found that when I did the reading and using a spread that was suitable for this Astro Tarot reading, the information that was coming up really corresponded to what was going on in her life at that particular time,
Mm,
right? So then the advice, I mean, I felt very confident about the advice
yeah.
that I was picking up from the cards,
Yeah.
and she felt very, yeah, she felt very confident that it was just the advice for her to hear at that time, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and another thing that I like, and I'm sure that you must do this as well, but I feel I can give clients a sort of an action plan about whatever
Hmm.
their situation is with very specific dates to take action
Yeah.
or to
Yeah.
expect certain things or whatever. I mean, especially the moon for me, because the moon sort of is a fast mover, but I do honestly feel
Hmm.
if somebody was going to kind of like do something that was a bit out of their comfort zone, for example, like say they had to make a kind of a phone call or send an email that they were uncomfortable about, I love the fact that we can say, well, hang on a minute, let me tell you when would be the best day and time for you to send it, when you're more likely to kind of like handle it well, and it's likely to just be more comfortable for you, because there's just going to be
Hmm.
certain times when it's kind of, well, you couldn't have picked a worse time to do this, so why don't you kind of sit it out for a couple of hours or a day or two, and then you will just feel a lot more relaxed about it, you know,
Yeah,
pick and choose your times, and having that available is mind-blowing, I think.
I agree with you. Yeah, and I feel like the more you know astrology,
Yeah.
um, and especially not only the prescriptive side of astrology, which you find more of in modern psychological astrology, but the more you know about like the traditional predictive techniques and what they say about like when certain planets are in a position to express their best potential and they're not in a position to do that, right?
Yeah.
So once you know that part of astrology, you can really integrate it with your readings in
Mm,
a very powerful way.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, it is amazing, and
Yes.
I can remember a time when it's like I'm Aquarius, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it means, but that's what I am, because the day I was born, I knew nothing, Khalid, absolutely nothing about astrology. And I got through life perfectly well, not knowing about it. But no, I can't imagine life without it, you know?
Yep. Yep.
I refer to it all the time, but especially in the tarot readings.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really enjoy the Astro Tarot readings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like very, very often the messages that we get, they seem to be, like, say, if I'm turning over a card for, let's say, Taurus, anyone with the sun, moon, or ascendant in Taurus, right, for
Yes.
advice for an upcoming new moon, right? And I find that the message, um, it sort of bridges together, right, the the whole range of meanings linked to that specific card and certain character traits specific to the sign of Taurus, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
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 So yeah, that correspondence can be really mind blowing. And then if we're combining um tarot readings with an oracle readings,
I
right? Like
know.
yeah, when we go through the whole let's say the whole three fire signs and then we get to an oracle card for the fire signs, you'll very often find that the card is giving you a message that is kind of um, that makes you aware that there is actually a common thread
Yeah.
between the reading the cards that came up for each of the fire signs, you
I know.
know. And I think that's really kind of
Yeah.
reinforcing this astrological insight that
Yeah.
the fire signs are related, and it's kind of in the way that mirrors,
Well,
each one mirrors.
the whole thing makes sense to me, because we are the planet Earth and we are orbiting the sun, and the moon is orbiting us. And then there's a
Uh-huh.
whole load of other planets that are also orbiting the sun. So we are all, I mean, it's called the solar system for a reason, but we are all
Right.
sharing this environment with those other planets, you know, that are in our locality. And
Mm-hmm.
it's everything's alive. This planet is alive. We're alive on it. And
Yes.
those other planets are also alive and functioning. It's all
Mm-hmm.
energy. And I just feel people, animals, whatever, all exist because of the connections of energies. So,
Yeah.
and energies can connect in positive ways, they can connect in challenging ways, or they can just miss each other entirely. And maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a near miss, or you know, in a good way, but maybe it's an unfortunate miss, you know, that connection didn't happen. And that's just going on all the time up there
Yeah.
within our solar system, never mind the rest of the universe. This
Mm-hmm.
whole thing makes total sense to me.
It really does. It
Yeah.
really does. Yeah. Yeah.
um
And
and it's
yeah.
been going for like thousands of years. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
going, I mean, thousands of years that we know of, but it'll have been going for billions of years.
Yeah. The
Those
resonances,
energies, yeah,
for sure. You know, I mean, they're um, physical energies that are actually propelling those movements of the planets around the sun, right?
yeah,
And I mean, there's a kind of like optical theory that presents the direction of the. I mean, it kind of draws or attributes a certain set of meanings to the directions of these energies, right? When there is like I mean, it's called the seven beams theory, right?
yes,
But so when a planet is in a certain position with respect to another planet, then it might be said to be looking at the planet in a certain way, and that could be a way that kind of um, fosters harmony or a way that invites tension, you
yeah,
know? And I think that's very interesting. It's like no one really knows where that theory came from, and it's a theory that produced the main aspects in astrology, which are the conjunction and the sextile and the square, the trine, and the opposition, right? Um, but in practice, when you're reading a person's chart and you see some of these aspects and you explain what these aspects most likely mean, you will find them saying yes, you know?
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
so it's just theory, It's like we don't really have a clear answer about like, okay, why is there 60-degree difference in longitude between these two planets? Why does that mean that they're looking each other in a favorable way? But there it is, it's like one of the mysteries of the universe is kind of being flagged up with
yeah,
this
yeah.
aspect,
There's a lot of little details to it. I mean, it's quite a complex subject, but I
Yeah.
feel that even once you have an understanding of the basics,
Yeah.
you can start to use it with your tarot. I genuinely feel this, and
Yeah.
like you don't have to know absolutely everything about astrology to
No.
perfection, like a world's expert, to be allowed
Right.
to use it with your tarot. As long as you're not saying anything that's wrong, anything that you do know is additional information that enhances the tarot reading, or it either enhances it or it guides the tarot reading in a certain way. So I would say to anyone who's learning tarot, maybe start to add in simple astrology. Yeah,
Yeah.
just add
Definitely.
it
Yeah.
in, even if it's just in a very, very slow sort of way, but gradually sort of add it in. Yeah, because you'll start to
Yeah.
see it
Even
in
if
your
it's just
reading.
like, yeah. Even if it's like using astrological spreads that are they just have card positions
Yes,
that correspond to like certain signs. For
yes,
example, the general character of certain signs.
yeah, exactly.
That yeah, you can even do a whole like life path spread.
Oh, yeah.
Bas Yeah, based on
Yeah,
that kind of
definitely. Yeah,
astrological layer under the card position meanings.
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, yeah. So, yeah,
Yep.
if you want to know more about any of this or have a reading, like, an Astro Tarot reading, I definitely think it's an advantage if you do know your time of birth. I mean,
Mhm.
that you can still get information without the time of birth, but it opens up the doorway to so much more if you've got
Absolutely.
the
It
time.
it really
Um,
is helpful. Yeah.
and I
Mhm.
would say if you're booking a reading with either of us or Sharon as well, try to find out your time if you don't know it. See if there's anyone around, because that would just add to the experience. But yeah, we do readings and we also teach it. So, here we are. But
Yeah.
I would say the first thing would be to come along every 2 weeks and watch our Astro Tarot videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
They're completely
Yeah.
free. They come out every 2 weeks, once for the new moon, once for the full moon. It's usually all 4 of us there from the Pomegranate Grove, and one person reads the oracle. And we have a lot of fun, and we never ever know what is going to come out of those readings. They're absolutely sort of there and then on the spot, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. The synchronicities sometimes are really mind blowing. So
Yes,
yeah, I really encourage you to watch, to follow our Astro Tarot
yes.
series. Yeah.
So if you were going to someone for a tarot reading for yourself,
Mhm.
would you choose a reader? I'm not feeding you here. That was going to include astrology.
Let's say if I've observed a transit that I believe is connected to my own birth chart in a significant way, then yes. I mean, it just makes sense to me to go to a reader who knows how to combine, who knows astrology well and knows how to combine it with tarot.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yep.
And how often, personal question here, how often do you check your own birth chart against the transits?
Ah, um,
More than
that's a
once a
really
week?
good. That's a really good question. Okay, let me think. Um, Actually, yeah, okay. So when I want to do some kind of ritual, um, or some kind of manifestation work, um, that draws on a specific planet in the sky.
Yes.
So yeah, the first thing I do is try to figure out like what aspect it's forming, with the same planet in my birth chart.
Yes.
Um, or let's say if I'm concerned about finances, and my ruling planet for finances, let's say it's Venus, right? Um, and so I look at like Venus in the sky and try to see what aspect it is with it's making with Venus in my birth chart, and then if I see that it's making a significant aspect, then yeah, quite often I would do a reading, to figure out like what what would be best for me to build the manifestation work on, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do them very often. Yeah.
Yeah. There is another thing that you can do with astrology, and we won't go into this in too much detail, but we've used this quite a few times, which is called electional astrology. And that's where you actually really do choose the best day or time. I know I sort of mentioned this before, but I was talking about sending an email or making a difficult phone call, but let's just say you were doing something really important. Like say you were opening a business or getting married or something that's very significant. Why would you not use electional astrology to absolutely launch
Right.
that on the best possible day that's
Right.
that's coming up? Of course you
Mhm.
would. If you know how to do it, of course you would use that tool. If you've got a choice about when let's say you were
Yeah.
open, you were starting a new business and you wanted to know which day to kind of like go public with your website or something, and you knew how to
Mhm.
do electional astrology or whatever. I mean, you'd read your tarot cards to get all the advice and all of that about your business. And then when you're actually that moment that you press that button or whatever, and that goes live, that would not be random. That would be very specifically chosen.
Right. Yeah. And if there's more than one time,
Yeah.
um, during which, for example, you might want to do, let's say, a money manifestation, um, ritual, or like a career manifestation ritual, right? Um, so you can use the tarot to kind of verify. Let's say you have three times, so you could use the tarot to kind of verify which of the three times is likely to be the best. You
Yes.
know?
Yes.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, I feel like we've got this kind of like amazing sort of plaything that you never get bored with because it's moving all the time. It's alive all the time and it's moving. And you
Yep.
just need to know kind of like how to work it. It's
Mhm.
honestly fantastic.
It
And
really is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really is amazing. So
Yeah.
we will
Mhm.
leave you there. And
Okay.
yeah, and just hope that you were able to follow what we were saying, because it can be a little bit difficult for people that don't do astrology to sort of understand what you're talking about. But I think we kind of kept it
Yeah.
understandable. Like, I hope so.
I
And I
hope so.
hope you
Yeah, too.
enjoyed the podcast. Please subscribe, like. What else?
Yeah.
Join our newsletter.
Yeah, join our newsletter through. You can do that through our website, and you can join our YouTube channel as well. And
We've got
yeah,
a
just check.
Patreon. We have a Patreon,
Right,
yeah,
right,
which
yeah,
is that part you do have to pay for, and we do
right.
it's the £12 a month gives you
Mhm.
access to all sorts of things and discounts on readings and blah blah blah, but also it allows you to come and meet us for our 4 live events a month. So it's all
Right.
there on our website. So hope
Yeah.
to see you there. And it's goodbye from Mandy on the moon, and
Khalid of Wands.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you for engaging with us. Please like, subscribe and share. To book a personal, in-depth reading and to learn more about our incredible courses in tarot and astrology, please visit our website www.thepomegranate.grove.com.